Eric Redmond's 2021 book, Deep Tech, highlights 7 technologies that are either already playing a major role in technology or are poised to be a major part in the future of technology and the world overall. Redmond is, to put it mildly, enthusiastic about the ways in which these deep techs can increase privacy, alter broken societal systems, and even combat the climate crisis. Always eager to hop on the next big trend, I have taken Redmond's advice, and I am now eager to embark into the great deep tech unknown. That's right. It's time to invest in crypto. Matt Damon told me that if I didn't invest now, I wouldn't be a true technological pioneer. And with this fortune favors the bold mentality, I am now ready to enter the crypto market. Oh, that's the price of Bitcoin, and it's a lot lower than it used to be. That's a lot of red, and if you compare it to how it was a year ago, that's really not good. Maybe is there anything else I can invest in? That is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. That last image, as disgusting as it was an NFT, a non fungible token, a sort of digital collectible that is bought and sold on the Ethereum network. Specifically, it was a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT. This is one of the most prominent NFT projects that really gained traction in 2021. Celebrities like Jimmy Fallon have presented their Bored Apes on their TV shows. As another example of how these Bored Ape NFTs weirdly invaded the real world, I wanted to show this screenshot from a music video that came out over the summer from Eminem and Snoop Dogg. This is From the D to the LBC, and it is a music video that just, for the most part, instead of the two rappers being on camera, they used their Bored Apes as avatars. I don't know what to make of this. I thought it was weird when it came out, and I think it's weird now. And that kind of transitions into deep tech from an alternate standpoint. So, this is a documentary released to YouTube in January 2022 called Line Goes Up The Problem with NFTs by Dan Olson. His channel name is Folding Ideas. It's a long watch at about 2 hours and 18 minutes, but it's an interesting companion piece to Redmond's chapter about blockchain. Olson discusses a lot of the same topics as Redmond, but with a very skeptical tone. I saw this documentary when it first came out. This is one of my favorite YouTubers, and I was fascinated by how much the content overlaps, but the tone does not with deep tech. I don't want to linger too long on NFTs because Redmond doesn't talk about them in deep tech. But if you follow him on Twitter, he seems very optimistic about them. Crypto evangelists present blockchain as a sort of future in which everything from medical records to supply chain information can be stored on the blockchain. And I really want to take a moment to focus on the idea of blockchain in healthcare because I think it highlights a lot. Our current healthcare system needs to be fixed dramatically. From getting referrals to dealing with insurance companies, it feels like we exist in the least efficient of all possible worlds. And there is something at the very least admirable about envisioning a hot new technology that could theoretically democratize, in a way, healthcare and give more power to patients. Redmond envisions how blockchain could mean patients have more control over what happens with their medical records, making it easier and more efficient to send records as needed, and he is not the only one who has looked into this. From the Line Goes Up documentary that I mentioned earlier, I had a general idea that there were ideas for how medical records and other healthcare information could be used in blockchain. And Redmond expanded on that understanding. But I was really curious to see like exactly what was happening in this field, if anything, because I think healthcare isn't a field that I think a lot could be done better. And I don't know if blockchain is necessarily the right way to do it, but hey, I'm all for any ideas. This is just a very abbreviated bibliography of some articles I looked at in the literature about ideas for using blockchain in healthcare. An interesting trend that I noticed is that most of these are from the computer science side of things rather than the medical side of things. Um, Most of these were not in collaboration with physicians or hospitals or anything. It's more of a hypothetical, hey, here's how we could do things. This article, the second from the bottom, is from a pharmacist journal, and it kind of is the same thing. It's just reviewing, like, here is how theoretically, if this technology became more accessible, here's how we could use it in our pharmacies. But I do think it's important to note the bottom link on Block Med Care. Again, this is all hypothetical, um, but the writers presented a potential system in which diabetes patients could have wearables that keep track of health information, and then this is directly sent to records from their physicians on blockchain. And theoretically, if blockchain is as secure as enthusiasts claim, a version of this tech could get the information to the people that it should get to while also protecting the privacy of the patients.
But I have my doubts. This is admittedly a personal thing, but I feel like every time someone is telling me about crypto or blockchain or anything Web3 related, they're trying to sell me something. And yes, Matt Damon, I am looking at you. I genuinely do enjoy Redmond's perspective on tech throughout these chapters of this book. He seems to have a very level headed understanding of the sorts of issues in the world that should be addressed. And for the most part, I think his visions of the future with tech that address these concerns, they're not bad or even that off. But he does show his hand a little bit when he talks about medical records. Page 109, Redmond states, and I quote, "An interesting twist is that it allows users to monetize their medical records for research purposes. Now that's owning your own data." End quote. Eric, you're so close to not having to go here. Blockchain seems mostly focused on monetization of seemingly everything. I don't want to paint myself as an expert on anything, but I do a lot of writing for the automotive industry. And, just like Redmond says, autonomous vehicles are a hot topic right now. And not to promote my own work or anything, but conveniently, I actually wrote an article last week that is pretty relevant to this topic.
Yeah, I know my name isn't on this, but I promise it's me. Ghostwriting isn't glamorous, but pays the bills sometimes. So the quest for level 5 autonomous vehicles is something that the tech industry, automotive manufacturers have been looking for forever. But within the last few years, like Redmond talked about, it's become a real feasible possibility. Um, the goal is for a car that has no driver in the driver's seat, no human driver. The car fully drives itself in all conditions. And I think that the subject of this particular article kind of highlights a problem with the trajectory of this progress. See, Elon Musk has stated for well over 7 years now that full self driving cars, level 5 autonomy, are on the horizon. But that reality just hasn't happened yet. Currently, all Tesla vehicles are equipped with something called autopilot, a somewhat misleading name that essentially boils down to advanced cruise control. Using sensors and cameras, Teslas can keep themselves in lanes and detect pedestrians and other obstacles for automatic emergency braking. A driver does have to be behind the wheel, though, so it's not autonomy, it's more of an assist. Then there is the upgrade, the even more misleadingly named full self driving. I promise it is not actually full self-driving. It essentially is Musk getting tired with waiting for actual self-driving cars and instead just slapping the name on something anyway. So this is an upgrade to the autopilot system that increases the features. So now a Tesla with full self-driving could park itself, for instance. But again, there has to be a driver behind the wheel.
Every so often, there will be a viral video of a self driving Tesla running into a child sized mannequin or something like that. These are not irrelevant videos, They don't necessarily speak to the overall quality of Teslas in general. The general consensus from car critics is that Tesla vehicles are really pretty good, and the whenever you see like a door being unable to open or something, these are rare instances that don't represent the brand as a whole. However, I do think that these videos highlight a sort of safety issue that contradicts the preachings of Redmond and other tech colleagues. Redmond views autonomous vehicles as a sort of great answer to the transportation issues of our time. They can be more energy efficient in their driving than humans can. That means they will reduce emissions. And their safety could remove the human element that makes driving dangerous. And I'm skeptical of this assessment. Manufacturers and tech gurus seem a lot more enthusiastic about autonomous vehicles than the average consumer or anyone does. The overall trust in autonomous vehicles is seemingly not high. I'm more likely to believe that electric vehicles will play more of a role in the future with human drivers. But I don't know about what autonomous vehicles it will play in anything. The debate about exactly how much EVs do to cut down on emissions is very nuanced and way too in depth to get into here. But I would not be surprised if they make up at least a fairly large part of transportation of the future. But then we got to talk about trains, because Redmond does not. Trains cut back on a lot of the issues that we have in this car-based society we live in. Redmond talks about things like this, the fact that to participate in most jobs or other aspects of society in most parts of the country, you basically need a car. US cities are built around them to this point where there's often very little space for pedestrians. Redmond tends to think that this could be reduced with autonomous vehicles, but I think we need to at least consider how trains might do it. I know that we are not a country with a lot of train-based infrastructure, particularly where I live in the Midwest, but it's something to at least look at if we're going to revamp the entire mode of transportation. Uh, oh dear. Okay, there's superposition, and I gotta be honest, I got nothing on this one. Nope. How about instead of that quantum computing stuff, I tell you a little story instead. You know, I fancy myself a bit of a writer, as I demonstrated earlier, and maybe thought we'd just wind down with a nice, quick little story. This story is called The Miracle of Michael Mahler Writing His Essay While Under the Influence of an AI. The summer break was upon me, and I had not made any progress on my dissertation. The deadline was fast approaching, but there were still many chapters yet to be written. All I could do at this point was hope for some miracle to save me from this predicament. I went online and searched for help with writing my essay. I then clicked on one of the first results that appeared in the search engine. This led me to a website where they offered custom essays for sale. It seemed too good to be true, so I decided not to trust them. But it did make sense why someone would offer custom essays for sale. All you have to do is copy and paste the work into your own page, and bam, you get a perfectly finished paper before the deadline. But I was skeptical about using these services, because it sounded like cheating and the risks were high. If I got caught in such an act, then I would be expelled from college, and possibly even jailed, depending on how grave the crime was. So I continued searching until I came across another site that offered a free sample of their work. I thought it would be safe to use them since they were just giving away something for free. I didn't expect much from this free sample, but I was pleasantly surprised when it turned out to be pretty decent. They actually put effort into making the essay interesting by adding a bit of humor and interesting anecdotes within the paragraphs. But what really blew my mind was the conclusion paragraph. It was simply brilliant. They ended the whole essay with a powerful punchline that left a lasting impression on the reader. When I checked the plagiarism report, it only showed a 0% plagiarized content. That meant they wrote it completely from scratch, which was impressive considering the quality of the essay. So I went ahead and ordered a custom essay for myself and received the same as experience as the free sample. After finishing the paper, I took a look at it again and noticed that it was, indeed, plagiarized. It was almost identical to the free sample I had received earlier, but the introduction was missing. As soon as I reported the issue, I got a refund from the company. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why did you order a second paper if you knew it was plagiarized? The truth is that I wanted to see how they handled the situation after I provided proof of the plagiarism. After contacting them, they agreed to give me a full refund and they promised to fix the problem in future papers. Although I was disappointed about the experience, I understood that the mistake wasn't intentional. I have ordered several other papers from them, but luckily, none of them were plagiarized. And, thanks to them, I am now done with writing my paper. Thank you very much. That was my wonderful, high quality work. I spent a long time making it.
Okay, I might have lied to you. I didn't write this story. In fact, no one wrote this story. This story was written by a computer. So this was written by Novel AI, an AI storyteller. It uses Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3, or GPT-3. This is an artificial intelligence that produces text through deep learning. It is meant to replicate human writing, and there are different websites, different programs you can use that kind of give you different almost voices that you can use. This particular one tells fiction stories. Others are meant to like replicate writing styles. There's a lot you can do with it. And I think the interesting thing is that the text here is kind of decent. I gave it this one prompt. Um, a graduate student runs out of time to write his essay and uses artificial intelligence to finish it. And it gave me a complete story structure with the beginning, middle, and end. It's not perfect. AI plays a surprisingly sparse role in the story, and there's a pretty odd moment where the narrator gets a plagiarized paper and then immediately just goes back to the company regardless. But I mean, it's not bad for a prompt that's 10 words or so. After I finished this essay, because I did not write this, I decided to throw it into a plagiarism detector. This is a pretty basic detector, like the one the protagonist would have used. And oddly enough, it found that it was 95% original. The two instances of plagiarism it caught were just sentences that the AI just straight up grabbed from these two websites. Um, and I would like to know more about how that happened, but nothing else in the story was plagiarized.
In his chapter on AI, Redmond discusses the ways that AI has already and will continue to infiltrate different industries, including the arts. AI is already being used to generate articles when human input is deemed unnecessary, and AI artists are becoming more and more common. Will it ever replace human artists? Probably not, but it is a slightly concerning trend for a lot of people, including me, a content writer, and whose work could, pretty easily be replaced by a machine like the one that made that story. Redmond's deep tech gives a digestible overview of where the world may be heading technology, whether his predictions are right or wrong, and whether his views of the future are for the better or worse of society, well, only time will tell. Until then, I guess all we can do is stop worrying and accept the fact that you will never know whether this was written by me or a machine.